She left Nigeria for Korea, dreaming of becoming a great lawyer. But what happens when the one person she had rejected comes back to hunt her future? What started as an embarrassing encounter quickly spiraled into drama, comedy, and a secret that could change everything. Stay back and grab your popcorn, and let's enjoy this heartwarming love story. Ngozi's earliest memory was the sound of her mother crying. The walls of their small Lagos home trembled with the heavy fists of her father, and little Ngozi, barely 10, had already learned the weight of silence. But silence was never her choice. She rushed to shield her mother one night, standing tall in front of her father, trembling but defiant. "No, you won't hurt her again," she shouted, her voice cracking yet filled with steel. For the first time, her father paused, stunned by the boldness of a child who refused to be afraid. Even in those dark moments, Ngozi's heart held a spark of rebellion, a quiet determination. She promised herself she would never let anyone she loved be bullied, or herself, for that matter. That night, as she held her mother close, she vowed to one day fight for women like her mother, women silenced by fear and pain. School was her escape. Books became her refuge, dreams her weapon. The world outside their neighborhood was vast, but she knew she could conquer it. Every day, she imagined a future where justice wasn't just a word, where women didn't suffer in silence, and where a young girl with a fiery heart could rise above tragedy. Little did she know, her courage and compassion would one day take her across oceans to a place where a shy, bullied Korean boy would meet her, and a love story, unlike anything she had imagined, would quietly begin. Ngozi's teenage years were filled with determination. While other kids worried about trivial things, she focused on school, law books stacked high on her small desk. Every night, she imagined a courtroom where women like her mother could find justice, and she was the one defending them. Her hard work paid off. A scholarship to a prestigious Nigerian university was only the first step. But the real surprise came when she won a chance to study law in Korea, a country so far away, with a culture and language she barely understood. The thought of leaving everything familiar should have terrified her. Instead, it ignited a quiet excitement. Her mother hugged her tightly at the airport, whispering, "Ngozi, you'll make me proud. Don't forget why you're going." Ngozi nodded, fighting back tears, her heart full of both hope and nerves. She boarded the plane carrying only a suitcase, her dreams, and the unshakable belief that she could make a difference. As the plane lifted off, Ngozi stared out the window, imagining the bustling streets of Seoul, the classrooms, and the endless opportunities. She didn't know it yet, but this new world would not only challenge her skills as a future lawyer, it would also introduce her to someone who had quietly admired her strength and kindness from afar. Ngozi stepped onto the sprawling campus of her new Korean university, her heart pounding with excitement and nerves. Around her, students bustled in groups, laughing, sharing snacks, and speaking in a language that still felt foreign. Some cast curious glances at the new Nigerian student, who seemed to carry both confidence and quiet intensity. She quickly realized that college wasn't going to be easy. A few students whispered and giggled, trying to intimidate her with subtle gestures and sly comments. But Ngozi had faced bigger challenges in her life. She straightened her back, met their stares with calm defiance, and walked past them like she owned every step she took. A Korean boy stumbled nearby, dropping his books, and she instinctively bent down to help him. "Here, you dropped these," she said in careful Korean, her voice polite but firm. The boy looked up, startled, and then his lips curled into a shy, grateful smile. That small interaction would unknowingly mark the beginning of something that neither of them could predict. Throughout the day, Ngozi met many students, some friendly, some dismissive, but she never allowed herself to be bullied. She had survived worse, and her determination only grew stronger. Amidst the challenges, she carried her mother's words in her heart, "Stand tall, my daughter. Let no one ever make you feel small." Even in a foreign country, Ngozi's fiery spirit could not be dimmed. Months had passed, and Ngozi had slowly grown accustomed to the rhythm of college life. She knew the classrooms, the library corners, and even the way some students whispered in the hallways. Korea was no longer entirely foreign, yet her fiery spirit remained as strong as ever. One afternoon, While walking to the library with her books clutched tightly, she noticed a small commotion near the courtyard. A Korean boy, hunched over and visibly nervous, was being pushed around by a group of students. They laughed cruelly, mocking him for dropping his books. Ngozi's heart clenched. She recognized that look, the fear, the helplessness. Without a second thought, she strode over, her presence commanding attention. "Hey, leave him alone," she shouted in crisp Korean. The bullies froze, startled by her boldness, then murmured excuses as she stepped closer, her eyes blazing. The boy looked up, stunned, as Ngozi offered him a reassuring smile. "Are you okay?" she asked gently, handing him his scattered books. He nodded, too shocked to speak. The bullies, seeing no option but retreat, finally slinked away, muttering under their breaths. As they walked together toward the library, the boy glanced at her shyly. "Thank you. I didn't know anyone would help me." Ngozi chuckled softly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. No one deserves to be bullied, ever. From that day on, Min-jae never forgot the girl who stood up for him. While others looked away, she walked into the fire without hesitation. To him, she wasn't just another student, she was a warrior. At the library, he found himself sneaking glances at her across the tables. Ngozi, buried in her law books, didn't notice the shy eyes that followed her every move. Every time she brushed her pen against her lips or tucked a strand of curly hair behind her ear, Min-jae's heart thumped like a drum. One afternoon, he gathered the courage to approach. Ngozi, right?" His voice cracked slightly, betraying his nerves. She looked up, surprised but warm. "Yes, that's me." He fumbled with his words. "I just wanted to say thank you for that day." Ngozi smiled, teasing lightly. "Well, you should learn to fight back too. You can't expect me to rescue you every time." Her tone was playful, but her eyes were kind. Min-jae blushed, scratching the back of his neck. "Why, yeah, I'll try." From then on, he found excuses to be around her, sharing notes, holding doors open, even pretending to need help with assignments he already understood. He wasn't sure if she noticed, but to him, every small interaction felt like the beginning of something he couldn't yet name. And so, while Ngozi focused on her dream of becoming a lawyer, Min-jae quietly carried a dream of his own, one that had everything to do with her. For weeks, Min-jae rehearsed what he wanted to say. He scribbled words in his notebook, practiced in front of mirrors, and even bought the perfect bouquet of lilies, the kind he thought matched Ngozi's strength and elegance. His heart raced as he spotted her leaving the library one crisp evening. Ngozi," he called, jogging nervously toward her, clutching the flowers like a lifeline. She turned, surprised to see him so flustered. "Min-jae, what's going on?" He thrust the bouquet forward, nearly dropping it in his panic. These are for you. And I like you. I've liked you since the day you helped me." His words tumbled out clumsily, his cheeks red with courage and fear. Ngozi blinked, caught off guard. She gently took the flowers, her expression soft but firm. After a moment, she sighed. "Min-jae, listen, I didn't help you because I wanted anything in return. I only stood up for you because no one deserves to be bullied. Don't spoil that moment by turning it into something else." His smile faltered, the rejection stinging sharper than he expected. She added, almost playfully but with an edge of seriousness, "Besides, if I ever date someone, it has to be a lawyer. A real lawyer, who knows what it means to fight for justice." Her words, meant to close the door, instead lit a fire in him. Min-jae forced a small, awkward smile, bowing slightly. I understand." But as he walked away, clutching the rejected bouquet, a silent promise formed in his heart. One day he would become that lawyer, worthy of standing beside her. Graduation came with smiles, photographs, and the promise of bright futures. But for Ngozi, reality struck harder than any exam ever had. Her scholarship had ended, and though she wore her gown with pride, the weight of life pressed down on her shoulders. Living in Korea as a foreigner was not easy. Rent was expensive, jobs were scarce, and every interview came with polite smiles but hesitant rejections. "We're sorry, you don't quite fit our requirements," they would say. Each time, Ngozi walked away with her head high, but her heart ached. Some nights, she ate nothing but instant noodles, sitting by the small heater in her tiny apartment, reminding herself of why she came: to fight for women, to build the life her mother dreamed for her. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. Ngozi, storms don't last forever. You were born to stand tall. Weeks turned into months, but she never gave up. And then, one chilly morning, her phone rang with the news that changed everything. She had been accepted into a law firm in Seoul. Ngozi sat frozen for a moment, then burst into laughter mixed with tears. She rushed to her mirror, wiping her face quickly. You did it, Ngozi, she whispered to her reflection. It wasn't just a job. It was her chance to prove herself in a world that often doubted her. Ngozi stood at the tall glass doors of the prestigious law firm in Seoul, her heart beating faster than the city traffic outside. She was no longer the timid girl who arrived in Korea years ago. She was now a law graduate with a scholarship behind her, determined to carve a place for herself in this world that once tried to shut her out. Her first week at the firm felt like being thrown into the ocean without a life jacket. Cases came one after another, some small, some heavy, but each one tested her grit. She stayed up late preparing her files, learning not just the law but also the sharp way her colleagues argued in court. Some days she returned home smiling, celebrating small victories when she managed to win a case for a client who had almost lost hope. But there were other days when the sting of defeat left her questioning if she truly belonged. She sat on her bed staring at her reflection, whispering, I didn't come all the way from Nigeria to give up here. The glossy confidence Ngozi carried into the firm began to fade as weeks turned into months. At first, she had won a few cases, enough to boost her reputation as the bold foreign lawyer who stood her ground. But soon, the weight of constant pressure started pressing down. In the courtroom, every loss felt heavier than the last. She replayed arguments in her head at night, wondering where she went wrong, her tiny apartment walls echoing with her sighs. The partners at the firm gave polite but sharp glances whenever she stumbled, and whispers followed her down the hallway. She's talented, but maybe not cut out for Korea's system. Ngozi didn't let them see her break. By day, she stood tall in her sharp suits, her afro puffed like a crown of resilience. By night, she curled into herself, fighting tears as she stared at her mother's photo on her desk. She couldn't afford to fail. Not after everything. Not with her mother still depending on her. The pressure was unbearable, but somewhere deep inside, a fire refused to go out. She reminded herself of the girl who once stood up to bullies without hesitation. That girl couldn't give up now. Not in a courtroom, not in a foreign land. Ngozi was summoned into her boss's office one chilly morning. The man barely looked up from his desk as she entered, his sharp suit and stern glasses reflecting his cold authority. Sit, he said in clipped Korean. Her palms were already sweating. She knew what was coming. Another lecture about her recent losses. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. Ngozi, this firm cannot carry dead weight. You have passion, yes, but passion doesn't win cases. Clients want results. His tone cut through her like a blade. Then he dropped the bomb. A high-profile client is coming in. I want you to handle the case. But this is your last chance. Do everything the client wants. Deliver results. If you fail, he paused deliberately, letting the silence suffocate the room. You're finished here. Ngozi sat frozen for a moment, her heart pounding. This wasn't just about a job. It was about her dreams, her dignity, and the money she needed to support her mother back home. She swallowed hard, nodding, but deep inside her chest was a fire of defiance. As she left his office, his words echoed in her ears. Last chance. This was it. The case that would either make her or break her. Ngozi sat stiffly in the conference room, her file neatly arranged, her heart drumming faster than usual. She had been told this client was wealthy, influential, and difficult. Not someone she could afford to disappoint. The door opened. A tall Korean man stepped in, dressed in a tailored suit, confidence rolling off him like perfume. He removed his sunglasses and smiled, not the polite kind, but one that carried hidden knowledge. Miss Ngozi, right? He said smoothly, his Korean accented with a faint chuckle. Ngozi stood, bowing slightly. Yes, I'll be handling your case. Please have a seat. He studied her for a long moment, his eyes lingering as though he was searching for something. And then it clicked, not for her, but for him. She hadn't changed much. The determined gaze, the stubborn chin, the afro puff crown. Memories of a younger, fiery girl standing up for him in college came rushing back. But she didn't recognize him. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. Actually, I don't just want legal help. I have a special request. Her brows furrowed. Special request? He smiled wider, enjoying the suspense. Yes, I want a marriage contract. Ngozi blinked, stunned. Excuse me. The man's gaze didn't waver. Marry me. For a second, Ngozi froze, her pen slipping slightly from her fingers. She forced herself to remain composed, but her heart skipped a beat. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? A marriage contract, he said again, clearer this time. His eyes never left hers. A legal arrangement. Nothing more, nothing less. The silence stretched between them, heavy and confusing. Ngozi tried to mask her shock with professionalism, but inside, her thoughts were racing. Why her? Why such a strange demand? This wasn't what she had prepared for. Just then, her phone buzzed quietly under the table. A message from home. She glanced at it quickly, her mother's name flashing across the screen. The words made her throat tighten. Ngozi, please, we need money urgently. The hospital bills. I don't know how much longer I can hold on. Ngozi's hands trembled. She quickly locked her phone, hiding the rising panic behind a mask of calm. When she looked up, the man was still watching her, his expression unreadable. She felt cornered. This wasn't a normal case, but turning him down wasn't an option. Not with her boss's warning, not with her mother's life depending on her. She forced a smile, steadying her voice. If it's a contract you want, then let's discuss the terms. Inside, her pride screamed in protest, but her heart whispered the truth. She would do whatever it took. And the man across from her, though he kept his secret well hidden, leaned back with quiet satisfaction. This was exactly what he had planned. That night, Ngozi sat alone at her small apartment desk, her case files untouched. The glow from her desk lamp spilled across scattered documents, but her mind wasn't on law or clients. It was on the message from her mother, the trembling words about hospital bills that she couldn't ignore. She buried her face in her hands. A marriage contract? The very thought made her skin crawl. All her life, she had fought for women's dignity, for freedom from control. And now, here she was, considering binding herself to a stranger in exchange for money. It felt like betrayal, to herself, to her dreams, and to her mother's sacrifices. Her chest ached as memories flashed before her eyes. Her mother's bruised arms, her father's rage, and her own vow as a little girl that she would never live in chains. But reality had its own chains, bills, survival, and the cold truth that she had no one else to lean on. The next morning, she walked into the same conference room. Her steps were steady, but her heart pounded like a drum. The man was already there, sipping his coffee with a calmness that irritated her. I've considered your request, she said firmly, though her voice wavered ever so slightly. And I accept. I'll agree to the marriage contract. For the first time, his smile widened, smooth and unreadable. He leaned back in his chair, studying her as though she were a puzzle he had just solved. Ngozi forced her shoulders back, her chin high. She wasn't doing this for him. She wasn't doing this for pride. She was doing this because in her world, survival sometimes meant sacrifice. Still, deep inside, she couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that this man's game was only just beginning. The city hall was colder than Ngozi expected. No flowers, no music, no cheering crowd. Just the sterile sound of papers shuffling and pens scratching across the dotted lines. She signed her name with a steady hand, though her chest was tight, and when the man slid his signature beside hers, the air seemed to shift. Just like that, they were husband and wife. Not by love, not by fate, but by contract. He slipped the signed papers into a sleek folder, then looked at her with the same unsettling calmness that never wavered. Since we're married now, he said casually, you'll have to move in with me. Ngozi's eyes widened. Move in with you? Of course, he replied smoothly. adjusting his cufflinks. My family isn't easy. They'll question everything. If we're not living together, they'll never believe this marriage is real. And I can't afford doubts. Her throat tightened. She had fought so hard for independence and for dignity, and now she was stepping into a stranger's world. A man she didn't trust, a family she didn't know, in a society that already watched her like an outsider. Still, the image of her mother's frail hands in a hospital bed silenced her hesitation. She forced herself to nod. Fine, I'll move in. His lips curved into the faintest smile, as though everything was going according to his plan. For Ngozi, this wasn't just a contract anymore. It was a stage, and the performance of her life was only beginning. The evening after their rushed wedding, Ngozi rolled her small suitcase into Minjae's luxury apartment. The place looked like something straight out of an architecture magazine. Sleek furniture, polished marble floors, and a panoramic view of Seoul's skyline. Ngozi placed her suitcase by the wall, already imagining the relief of resting after a long day. But Minjae cleared his throat, straightening his tie. Since he'll be staying here, he said seriously, we need to set conditions. Her eyes narrowed. Conditions? Yes, he replied smoothly. First, rent. This apartment isn't free. You'll pay 50% of it every month. Ngozi almost choked. 50 what? Are you insane? You're the one who dragged me into this contract marriage. He raised an eyebrow, his lips twitching into a smirk. Dragged? You signed willingly, and a contract is binding. Ngozi threw her hands up. Unbelievable. You're rich enough to buy this entire building, yet you want me to pay rent like a roommate. Exactly, Minjae said calmly. Roommates split rent, and also chores. Chores? Ngozi gasped. Yes, cooking, cleaning, and laundry. We'll divide them evenly. She stared at him, utterly speechless. You're out of your mind. But Minjae only smiled, watching her frustration with hidden amusement. The truth was, he didn't care about her paying rent or cleaning. He just wanted her close, wanted her to stay. Yet if teasing her with rules was the only way to keep her here, he was more than happy to play the villain. Ngozi muttered under her breath, dragging her suitcase toward the spare room. I should have charged you extra for this marriage. And Minjae, watching her stomp away, fought back a laugh. For the first time in years, his home felt alive. Minjae sat at his dining table, sipping tea while scrolling through his tablet. The apartment was quiet until his phone buzzed. He sighed when he saw the caller ID, Halmiani. The moment he answered, his grandmother's loud, energetic voice filled the line. Minjae, when are you bringing me a daughter-in-law? I'm old. My bones can't wait forever. He rubbed his temple. Grandma, please. No excuses, she snapped. Your cousin married last year. Even your friend's dog had puppies before you. Do you want me to die without seeing my grandson's wife? Halmiani, he muttered, trying to keep calm. If you don't bring a wife soon, she continued dramatically, I swear I'll climb the fence of this house and jump. Let the neighbors watch me break my bones. Minho nearly choked on his tea. What? Grandma, are you crazy? Yes, crazy from waiting, she shouted. His eyes flicked toward the spare room where Ngozi was unpacking her things. He pinched the bridge of his nose, and before he could stop himself, the words tumbled out. Fine. I already have a wife. There was a long pause on the line, then a shriek of joy. A wife. Finally, my prayers worked. I will come to your house this weekend. I want to meet my new granddaughter-in-law. Minjae's face went pale. This weekend? Yes. Don't you dare hide her from me, she commanded before hanging up. As the call ended, Minho groaned, dragging a hand down his face. What have I done? From the doorway, Ngozi appeared, arms crossed, eyebrow raised. What did you do now? He looked up at her, guilty but trying to mask it with a smile. Settle in, wifey. You are going to meet my grandmother. Ngozi's eyes widened. I didn't sign up for this. Minjae smirked faintly, already picturing the chaos to come. Well, consider it a clause in our contract. The next morning, Ngozi walked into the law firm with her usual mask of confidence. She had barely slept, still trying to process the cold wedding and his bold demand that she move in with him. But today was work, and work meant focus. The office buzzed with unusual excitement. Colleagues whispered in corners, adjusting ties and skirts as if expecting royalty. The head partner clapped his hands together. Attention, everyone. Today we welcome a new senior lawyer to our firm. He's one of Korea's brightest legal minds, and we're honored to have him. Ngozi tilted her head, curious. New lawyer? Great. Another person to impress. She adjusted her blazer and joined the line of staff waiting to greet him. The glass door slid open. A tall figure stepped in, sharp suit tailored to perfection, carrying the same aura that had unsettled her in the conference room. Her stomach dropped instantly. It was him, her husband. He walked straight through the hallway, greeting the partners politely, his eyes flickering briefly to Ngozi with the faintest curve of amusement at his lips. He didn't say a word, but that look said everything. Surprised to see me? Ngozi froze, clutching her files so tightly her knuckles whitened. Heat rushed to her cheeks. Of all the law firms in Seoul, he had chosen hers. Or maybe, just maybe, he had planned this from the start. She swallowed hard, forcing herself to breathe as her boss proudly announced, "Meet attorney Kang Min-jae, our newest partner." Ngozi's world tilted. Not only was he her husband by contract, now he was also her colleague. And worse, it felt like he was determined to follow her everywhere. The head partner smiled proudly as Min-jae finished his introduction. Then, with a clap, he announced, "Now, attorney Min-jae will select an assistant from our young lawyers to work with directly." Ngozi prayed silently under her breath, clutching her pen. "Please not me. Please anybody but me." Her heart nearly stopped when Min-jae's calm voice cut through the air. "I choose Miss Ngozi." The office buzzed instantly. Whispers flew across the room. Some junior lawyers gasped. Others giggled. One colleague leaned to another, whispering, "Isn't she the Nigerian lawyer? Why her?" Ngozi's mouth dropped open. She stammered, "As sir, are you sure?" Min-jae smirked, his eyes locking on hers with a teasing glint. "I never choose wrongly." That was how her new nightmare, or perhaps secret adventure, began. Working side by side with Min-jae was a storm. He was annoyingly meticulous, correcting her smallest mistakes, yet unexpectedly charming, holding the elevator for her when she tried to avoid him. Sometimes, in the middle of heated case discussions, their banter slipped into comedy, him teasing her about her accent, her rolling her eyes and snapping back under her breath. But what made it worse was how close he always leaned when showing her case files, his cologne surrounding her, his voice low. Ngozi's heart betrayed her with its racing beats, while she fought hard to stay professional. For Min-jae, it was a secret game. He wasn't just working with her. He was determined to win her heart all over again. Ngozi walked into Min-jae's spacious office, the sound of her heels clicking against the polished floor. He didn't look up at first, just motioned with his hand. "Pass me that file on the table." She rolled her eyes but obeyed, picking up the file and handing it to him. Their fingers brushed, just for a second, but it was enough to send a strange shiver racing up her arm. Ngozi quickly pulled back, pretending nothing happened, but her heart thudded faster than she cared to admit. Min-jae finally looked up from his papers, his sharp eyes pinning her in place. He leaned back in his leather chair, steepling his fingers. Then, with a straight face, he asked, "Ngozi, why do you always lose your cases? Is it a special talent of yours?" Her jaw dropped. "Excuse me." He tilted his head, feigning innocence. "I mean, you must have a reason. Some people collect stamps, some people collect perfumes, and maybe you collect courtroom defeats." Ngozi gaped at him, completely caught off guard. Her lips trembled, half from irritation, half from shock. "Are you insulting me or trying to be funny?" "Both," Min-ho admitted smoothly, the corner of his lips twitching upward. Ngozi crossed her arms, glaring. "Let me make something clear. I don't always lose. Sometimes the odds are against me. Sometimes the system is unfair. And sometimes—" She stopped, realizing his smirk was growing wider by the second. "Sometimes what?" he teased, leaning forward, voice dropping just low enough to make the air in the room feel heavier. Ngozi shot him her fiercest look. "Sometimes I lose because people like you keep distracting me with stupid questions and smug faces." For a heartbeat, silence filled the office. Then Minjae chuckled, a deep, rich sound that only annoyed her further. Ngozi turned away, muttering, "Unbelievable." But as she gripped the file tightly, she couldn't ignore the heat in her palm where their fingers had brushed. And for the first time, she wasn't sure who was winning or losing in this game between them. Later that day, Ngozi entered Minjae's office with a stack of documents, ready to drop them on his desk. She had braced herself for another one of his sly comments about her losing streak. But this time, Minjae leaned back in his chair with an unusually relaxed smile. "Ngozi," he said smoothly, "before we start, could you get me a cup of coffee?" She froze, blinking at him. "Coffee?" "Yes," he replied casually, flipping through the papers. "Ha! No sugar. Strong enough to keep me awake through your long speeches." Ngozi's eyes widened, her lips parting in shock. "Excuse me? I'm your assistant, not your maid." Minjae looked up at her slowly, that infuriating smirk playing at the corner of his mouth. "An assistant assists. And right now, I need assistance with coffee." Her jaw tightened. She wanted to throw the file at his head. Instead, she exhaled sharply, muttered something under her breath, and stormed out. The moment the door closed, Minjae chuckled softly to himself, shaking his head. "Still the same fiery woman," he whispered, his smile more tender than mocking. Minutes later, Ngozi returned, slamming the coffee cup on his desk. "Here, drink it. And if you ever ask me again, I swear I'll." He leaned forward, taking a slow sip. Perfect. Just like I knew it would be." Her eyes narrowed suspiciously. "Why do I feel like you're enjoying this too much?" Minjae didn't answer. He only watched her with that secret smile, the same one he had carried since college, the smile of a man still savoring the sweet revenge of being rejected and the sweeter possibility of winning her over this time. The office was empty except for the sound of Ngozi's pen scratching against paper and Minjae's steady typing. Everyone had gone home hours ago, but Minjae had deliberately piled more files onto her desk, watching her groan each time he slid another document toward her. "Still awake, counselor?" he teased, sipping his coffee slowly. "You wanted to win cases, right? Then no shortcuts." Ngozi glared at him with tired eyes. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" He leaned back, smirking. "Immensely." By the time she finished, the city lights outside were glowing in the midnight hush. She gathered her things, exhausted, and started walking toward the door. But Minjae stood up, tossing his car keys into the air. "It's too late for you to take the bus. I'll drive you." Ngozi frowned, ready to argue, but her legs ached too much. She quietly followed him to the car. Inside, the ride was silent at first. The city's neon lights painted shifting colors across her tired face. Soon, her head tilted against the window, her breathing soft and steady. She had fallen asleep. Minjae glanced at her, his usual arrogance fading. For the first time, his eyes softened. He slowed the car a little, just to steal another second of watching her peaceful face. "She hasn't changed," he whispered to himself. "Still stubborn, still beautiful." But Ngozi didn't hear. She was lost in her dreams, while he drove on, silently battling feelings he has kept since college. The next morning, his grandma is coming, and Minjae insists they practice. "Say, I'm happy to be your granddaughter-in-law," he tells Ngozi, folding his arms. Ngozi rolls her eyes. "I'm not a parrot." He steps closer, lowering his voice. "If you mess this up, she'll know the marriage is fake. And trust me, Halmini has sharper instincts than a lawyer." Ngozi gulps. For the first time, she realizes this isn't just comedy, it's war. Thank you for watching. Do you think Minho should have acted the way he did by offering her a contract marriage and treating her that way? Or what do you think will happen when Ngozi finally knows the reason behind his actions? I would love to hear your feedback. Tell us where you are watching from. Episode 2 will be dropped in 3 days. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more. This is Afro Love Diaries, where every heartbeat tells a story.